We enter into this time and this space to join our hearts and minds together. What is it that we come here seeking? Many things, perhaps too many to mention them all. Yet it is likely that some common longings draw us to be with one another this morning, to remember what is most important in life, to be challenged to live more truly, more deeply, to live with integrity and kindness, with hope and love, to feel the company of those who seek a common path, to be renewed in our faith in the promise of this life, to be strengthened, and to find the courage to do what we must do day after day, world without end. Even if your longings are different than these, you are welcome here. You're welcome in your grief and in your joy to be within this circle of companions. We gather here this morning once again, and it is good to be together. Well, these words by my good friend Linda Hart welcome all who have gathered for our service this morning. Welcome to those of you here in person at Essex Church. Welcome to everyone who's joining us via Zoom from far and wide, or indeed who's listening in via the podcast or the YouTube feed at a later date. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Jane Blackall and I'm minister with Kensington Unitarians. This morning's service is titled Other Loves. Last week I not jokingly said this was going to be an anti-Valentine's service. That's not quite true. But in the week when the traditional model of romantic love is held up as the highest ideal and aspiration, I want to take us to a wider view and to celebrate all those other loves that also make the world go round. There are so many different ways in which we might find love and express love and honour the other significant others in our lives. As Bell Hooks once said, to love well is the task of all meaningful relationships, not just romantic bonds. Before we go any further, let's do as we always do. Let's begin by lighting our chalice flame. It's a moment for us to take a breath, to arrive, maybe ground and centre ourselves, lay down any worries that we came in carrying. It's a ritual that connects us with Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists the world over, and it reminds us of the proudly progressive religious tradition of which this gathering is part. I'm going to trust that it will catch eventually. Love is the aspiration, the spirit that moves and inspires this faith that we share. Rightly understood, love can nurture our spirits and transform the world. So may the flame of this chalice honour and embody the power and the blessing of the love we need, the love we give, the love we are challenged always to remember and share. Time to sing together now. Our first hymn this morning is on your hymn sheet, if you're in the building, as they all are today, in fact, and it's called The Power of Love. For those joining via Zoom, the words will be up on screen, as they will for all the hymns today. Feel free to stand or sit as you prefer, and let's sing up as best we can, The Power of Love. So let's take all those joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, into an extended time of prayer now. This is based on some words by Laura Horton Ludwig. You might want to get comfortable, might want to put down anything you don't need to be holding. Perhaps there's a posture that helps you to feel more prayerful, or maybe you'll close your eyes. Whatever helps you to get into the right state of body and mind to be fully present in this sacred space we're co-creating. Present to yourself, present to others in this community, and to that which lies within us and beyond us. Spirit of life, God of all love, in whom we live and move and have our being, we turn our full attention to you, the light within and without, as we tune into the depths of this life and the greater wisdom to which and through which we are all intimately connected. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silence and the stillness at the very centre of our being. As people of faith, we seek to live in a spirit of love, a spirit of community, justice, peace. And yet in so many corners of the world, both far and near, we see exploitation and coercion, divisiveness and hate. We struggle to respond to the outer world and all our inner dramas in ways that manifest love. At times we may fear that love will not be strong enough. At times we may question whether love really is at the root of all things in this world with so much struggle and suffering and discord. This is the mystery within which we live and die. These are the questions which haunt our days and nights. And yet, despite everything, we are not quite without hope. Our struggles and our questions testify to our longing for peace and for love. In the stillness and the silence of our own heart, we read the imprint of love, a light within. May it keep hope alive even through the toughest times. May it guide us all through our days as we seek to act wisely and well. And may it help us to be vessels of compassion for one another and for our hurting world. And in a few moments of shared stillness now, let us call to mind all those people and situations that are on our hearts this morning. And let us hold them gently in a spirit of loving kindness. And let us hold ourselves in loving kindness too. Each of us carries our own private burdens. So let us rest in self-compassion as we inwardly, silently ask for what we most need this day. and let us take just a few moments more to reflect on the week just gone in a spirit of gratitude. Let us take time to notice and give thanks for all those blessings, large or small, that have helped to lift our spirits this week. Spirit of life, God of all love, as this time of prayer draws to a close, we offer up our joys and our concerns, our hopes and our fears, our beauty and our brokenness. And we call on you for insight, healing and renewal. As we look forward now to the coming week, help us to live well each day and be our best selves, using our unique gifts in the service of love, justice and peace. Amen. Time to sing again now. This is one we've been learning lately. I think we're nearly there, but not quite, so I will get George to play it through before we sing. It's Who Is My Neighbour? One of two by the excellent contemporary hymn writer Amanda Udis Kessler that we'll be singing today. At some point we will just go for it, but let's hear it from George first. Who is my neighbour?
Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places by David S. Blanchard. Most of us look for love in only the most obvious places, and as a result, most of us come away disappointed. It's as if we're still kids in junior school, counting Valentines as a measure of what matters. The love that matters is not typically the subject of sonnets or love songs. There can be love in being told we are wrong. There can be love in sharing a regret. There can be love in asking for help. There can be love in communicating hurt. There can be love in telling hard truths. Most of us find it painful to live at this level of love, but it can be there even in these most unlikely places. It isn't the kind of love we've been promised in the fairy tales of princesses and fairy godmothers, but it is the kind experienced by frogs and dwarves. It's the sort of love that can bring us closer to finding the missing pieces of ourselves that we need to make us whole. Some of the most loving things I've ever experienced, I haven't been ready for, wasn't looking for, and nearly didn't recognize. A few of them I didn't want. But all of them have changed me, transformed some part of me, filled in a place that I didn't even know was empty. When the Valentine has been tucked away in a drawer, the chocolates eaten, the flowers faded and gone, there will be other legacies of love that will last as long as we do, because they have brought us to know an element of life, part feeling, part idea, part mystery, that once known is ours to keep.
Thanks, Roy. So we're moving into a time of meditation now. To take us into some shared stillness, I'm going to share a poem from Rosemary Watola Trummer, extraordinary contemporary American poet. She sends out a brand new poem every day on her mailing list, and she shared this one only a few days ago. I can't help but hear it in the context of what's unfolding in the US right now, and indeed all of the troubles that we're aware of worldwide. Quite overwhelming. Her starting point for this poem is a two-word quote from Diana Butler Bass: love relentlessly. Love relentlessly. To speak of love in the face of all the challenges that the world is facing can feel a bit feeble, flippant, but this poem is anything but feeble. It's a tough ask, that we face reality and still remain centred in love rather than being consumed with rage or despair. I'd encourage you to just listen and let the poem wash over you, but it is printed on the hymn sheet, so you can take it away and read it later on. This poem is going to take us into a few minutes of shared silence that will end with the sound of a bell, and then we're going to hear another lovely song from our trio. So again, do what you need to do to get comfortable. You might want to get your feet flat on the floor. Maybe that will help you feel more steady and centred. You might want to close your eyes. And as we always say, the words are just an offering. Feel free to use this time to meditate in your own way. Love relentlessly, she said. And I want to slip these two words into every cell in my body. Not the sound of the words, but the truth of them. The vital, essential need for them, until relentless love becomes a cytoplasmic imperative, the basic building block for every action. Because anger makes a body clench. Because fear invokes cowering, shrinking shock. I know the impulse to run, to turn fist, to hurt back. I know too the warmth of cell-deep love, how it spreads through the body like ocean wave, how it doesn't erase anger and fear, rather seeds itself somehow inside it. So even as I contract, love bids me to open wide as a leaf that unfurls in spring until fear is not all I feel, Love relentlessly. Even saying the words aloud invites both softness and ferocity into the chest, makes the heart throb with simultaneous urgency and willingness. A radical pulsing of love, pounding love, thumping love, a rebellion of generous love, tenacious love. A love so foundational, every step of what's next begins and continues as an uprising, upwelling, ongoing infusion of love, tide of love, honest love.
In the cold and the heat, all the hours of the week, on England's motorway. Yeah, sure we'd like your daddy here, and sure it would be fine to have him working near home and be with you all the time. But beggars cannot be choosers, we will have to bear our load. 'Cause we need the money our daddy earns for working on the road. But remember, Lammy, he's still your dad that's been working far away. In the cold and the heat, all the hours of the week, on England's motorway. Remember, Laddie, he's still your dad, though he's working far away. In the cold and the heat, all the hours of the week, on England's motorway.
Love. It can be such a confusing word in our language. I can say, I love my children. And I can say, I love watching Downton Abbey. Love means lots of different things. People experience love differently, even love that might look the same on the outside.
The ancient Greeks had something that helped, different words for different kinds of love. One is eros. Eros is the passion that young lovers feel for each other. It's the romantic, head over heels love that's also often connected with physical attraction. Many of us think of romantic love as adorable or even enviable, and it can be. Eros love is what most of the songs on the radio are about. But the ancient Greeks often considered it dangerous because of the out of control nature and the way these feelings can get you into trouble.
There's also pragma, or long-standing love. Those of us who have been married for a long time know that the crazy new crush feeling does not last until the golden wedding anniversary. It is something else. It's a different love. Pragma is based in compromise, in mutual regard and respect, in tolerance. I have heard that when we start a relationship, that we fall in love. Over time, we stand in love. That is pragma. It makes me sad when I hear that folks think that if the exciting eros feeling fades, it means the relationship is over and you need to move on to a new one. But the love of pragma, which sounds a lot like pragmatic to me, is a fine love that will see you through the hills and valleys that life offers up to us. It's a comforting and warm love, even if it is not so thrilling all the time.
Then there's philia, the love of deep friendship. We have philia for a comrade who we fought side by side with on the battlefield or in the trenches of a social movement. These are those old school or college friends that we still feel so close to, or the poker group that has met every month for a decade. Philia is more constant than eros, more reliable and strong.
There is ludus, or playful love. Most of us had the experience of flirting with someone just because it was fun. It didn't mean anything, like a deep connection. It was a kind of mutual game. Ludus is only problematic when it is confused for something different than it is.
Then there's agape love, the selfless love for another human being. We often refer to that love as compassion or empathy. Agape is what keeps nurses warm and friendly as they care for the demented patient, and what urges firefighters to run towards the burning building. The Buddhists call it loving kindness. This is the Greek word that you see over and over in the Bible, agape. In fact, the reading from 1 Corinthians that we hear so often, the one about faith, hope, and love, isn't about the love between honeymooners. It's about agape.
Last on the list of words for different kinds of love is philautia, or the way you love yourself. This kind of love needs to be balanced. There's self-love that is positive self-esteem and a happy self-confidence. That's good. We need to love ourselves and treat ourselves as valuable people, because doing so helps us take good care of ourselves and provides a base from which we can love others. Then there's arrogant and narcissistic self-love that can be destructive. It can keep a person focused on themselves alone. That's not so good.
In the movie Forrest Gump, he says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Is that true of love as well? That you never know what you're going to get? Well, life is full of surprises, and love can be as well. Yes, love is like a box of chocolates. Both can involve some choice and some risk. Love and chocolate can bring you joy, but can also be kind of messy. Different people have different tastes and different desires. But know that your love and your life is honored here as we grow in compassionate community.
Thank you, Patricia and David. There's a saying that used to be used a lot in Unitarian and Universalist churches, kind of a covenant to hold us together. And it starts with the phrase, love is the doctrine of this church. I don't think it would be controversial to say that love is what we think we're about as a community here. It pops up on a regular basis in our hymns and our prayers. We think of it as being right at the centre of who we are and what we do, or at least what we aspire to do. But strangely, we don't often make it a particular focus of a service. Perhaps it's just too big a topic to get a handle on, or too slippery a concept. At least once a year, though, Valentine's Day prompts us to give it a try, hence today's theme. Though that event is usually squarely focused on romantic love. And the culture that we're immersed in tends to promote romantic love as the absolute pinnacle of human experience. When we're young, especially, pursuit of a romantic relationship and a happy ever after can become a significant focus of our lives. The ideal that's sold to us is that we can and should get all our needs met in one relationship. We will rely on one person for more or less everything: sex, companionship, practical support for the rest of our days. Romantic coupling is presented almost as an organising principle for our lives and our society, even, at least in theory. But in reality, as we know, such relationships often end up being rather more of a mixed bag. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible that idealised fairy tale experience of falling in love and staying together for the long haul. I'm not saying it's impossible that your needs will be met largely within one lasting bond. But it seems to be the exception rather than the rule. And these days, many of us are coming to the realisation that other forms of love, other ways of being in relationship, are just as important, just as worthy of our attention as the conventional coupling that we usually celebrate on Valentine's Day. Now, I say these days, of course, this is not new. As we just heard, the ancient Greeks had all these words for other loves many, many centuries ago: phragma, philia, ludus, agape, philautia. They certainly still celebrated eros, the falling in love kind of love, the desire that sweeps us off our feet, magnetically attracts us to another, stirs us to act, the love associated with drama and transformation. But they also honoured pragma, this kind of mature love you can rely on, the sensible and unglamorous love of committed long-term relationship which endures all the ups and downs, and also philia, intimate friendship. I say that to distinguish it from the many other more casual, easy come, easy go kinds of connections where the word friend is bounded about, but that deeper loving connection is perhaps not present. There's ludus, this playful love. I would say this includes all short-term consensual dalliances where two people delight in each other for a time, but know it's a thing of the moment and it's not going to last. And philautia, which mustn't be overlooked, about healthy self-love and self-care. But agape is the one that gets mentioned most often in religious contexts, a more universal love, sometimes traditionally translated as charity, but I tend to connect it more with compassion. A generalised, benevolent fellow feeling for the well-being of others, whoever they may be. It is a slightly tricky concept to get a grip on, but I found a really interesting take on it in an essay by the philosopher Maisha Cherry, who wrote this. In fact, this is in the context of her doing a study about the work of Martin Luther King. Agape is not an affectionate feeling, nor does it require liking the beloved. Instead, love is an attitude. The reason for loving the beloved is unmotivated and groundless. Therefore, agape is not aimed at a selective few, but rather all members of the moral community. The only grounds for loving is because they are human. It involves understanding, goodwill, respect, and active concern. Agape is not passive or weak, but active and tough. It desires the common good, resistance to injustice, and restoration of the beloved community. Although agape is generalized love towards everyone, it is often expressed differently to particular people. And she also mentions that agape includes concerns for the distress or the needs of others, and it also involves action, namely helping. And that is a helpful take on agape from Maisha Cherry, which draws out its connection to social justice. Culturally in society, as I said before, we do tend to put these forms of love into a hierarchy, with this all-consuming romantic love at the top and the other loves as also rans. And we see this played out in various ways. In the past, I have certainly been guilty of disappearing into romantic relationships and neglecting my friends for a time until the gloss wore off. And I've also been on the other side of that equation, where on numerous occasions I've felt I've been dumped by friends who were suddenly giving all their time and energy to their latest flame. Today's service theme was inspired in part by this intriguing book, The Other Significant Others, Reimagining Life with Friendship at the Centre by Raina Cohen. It contains a number of stories of people who have defied convention by choosing a friend as, in some sense, a life partner, co-owning a home together, co-parenting a child together, or being committed caregivers to each other later in life. And as the book's blurb says, these stories unsettle widespread assumptions, including the idea that sex is a defining feature of partnership and that people who raise kids together should be in a romantic relationship. Cohen argues that we undermine romantic relationships by expecting too much of them, while we diminish friendships by expecting too little of them. She insists that we recognise the many forms of profound connection that can anchor our lives. And this book challenges us to ask what we want from all our relationships, not just what we're supposed to want. And that transforms how we define a fulfilling life. Now, I won't try and summarise the stories in this book. I couldn't do them justice. They're so interesting. But I found it fascinating to read about people who realised that a platonic friendship was their most important relationship, the one connection they wanted to build their whole life around, and that would be their significant other. More generally, it's becoming increasingly apparent that there are all these different ways of doing relationships, and there are lessons to learn from people who are being thoughtful and reflective about making less conventional choices and sharing their lived experience with them, with us all. I think particularly of the asexual and the polyamorous communities, from whom we might learn about approaching our relationships with fewer default expectations as to what sort of relationship it will turn out to be. The Valentine's Day version of love puts a lot of emphasis on grand passions, big emotions. But love is more than just a feeling. We've said that here before. I think last year's Valentine's service was based on the Massive Attack lyric, love is a verb, love is a doing word. When I was at Heathrop College some years ago, studying the best titled philosophy module ever, Love, Sex, Death and God, I discovered that the philosophers had a whole range of perspectives on love. Yes, it can be a feeling or an emotion which comes up spontaneously, but it can also be an attitude that we hold, a set of actions or behaviours that we engage in on a sustained basis, or a commitment that goes on. Bell Hooks, in her classic text All About Love, wrote this: learning 40 definitions of love when we are young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older. Most of us learn early on to think of love as a feeling. When we feel deeply drawn to someone, we cathect with them. That is, we invest feeling or emotion. And that process of investment wherein a loved one becomes important to us is called cathexis. Most of us confuse cathecting with loving. If we remembered that love is as love does, we would not use the word in a manner that degrades and devalues its meaning. When we are actually loving, we openly and honestly express care, affection, responsibility, respect, commitment, and trust. And feminist theologian Carter Haywood has this to say: love does not just happen. We're not puppets on the strings of a deity called love. Love is a choice, not simply or necessarily a rational choice, but rather a willingness to be present to others without pretense or guile. Love is a conversion to humanity, a willingness to participate with others in the healing of a broken world. And love is the choice to experience life as a member of the human family, a partner in the dance of life, rather than as an alien in the world or a deity above the world, aloof and apart from human flesh. Words from Carter Haywood. Love is a choice, and we need to choose love, more so now than ever. In this world of perma-crisis and precarity, we can and we must still turn to one another for comfort, solidarity, and practical support. As the social safety nets we might have expected to rely on are cut, community building and mutual aid networks become ever more crucial, and all this is love in action. So in the week to come, maybe on Valentine's Day itself, that's Friday, I think, I encourage you to take a more expansive vision of love than the one that the purveyors of cards and chocolates and flowers are selling us. Take a moment to appreciate all your people, all your significant others, and consider how you can honour established relationships, nurture new connections, and express your love all year round. And if you feel you need more love in your life, of whatever flavour, romantic, platonic, playful, compassionate, or self-love, perhaps approach that question with openness and let life surprise you. You could make the first move, perhaps, to reach out and connect, as Bell Hooks said, to openly and honestly express care, affection, responsibility, respect, commitment, and trust. So I'll close this reflection with a very short blessing from the Unitarian Universalist Laura Riordan Brady. May we find love in the here and now, love in our hearts, love for the broken down, love for the lonely, love for those yet to feel whole, love for those in between, love for those out of our reach. May we find love, add love, and be love in this world. And may it be so for the greater good of all. Amen. Time for one last hymn now. This is the other one by Amanda Udis Kessler, We Belong to One Another. I think it's a fairly straightforward tune, but I'm definitely going to ask you to play this one through, George. One last time. We belong to one another. Just time for a few announcements now. Thanks to Ramona for tech hosting and Janine for co-hosting on Zoom. Thanks to Roy and David and Patricia for reading. Thanks to Tara and Jess for lovely music today. George for accompanying our hymns with such gusto, and Benji for singing support. Thanks to Julia for greeting, and Liz for doing the coffee. For those of you who are here in person, we've got pear, hazelnut and chocolate cake. It's very, very dense. All the ingredients are nice. I'm sure it'll be fine, but don't expect something light and fluffy. If you're online, please do hang on for a chat with Janine. Maybe I'm doing you a favour because you're missing out on that particular cake. If you're in the church, Hannah will be offering community yoga back here in the church from 12:30 today. That's free of charge, but if you haven't been before, just have a word with Hannah to fill in the consent form or whatever it is, the medical information form. Tonight and Friday at 7, we've got our Heart and Soul online contemplative spiritual gathering. Anyone's welcome to that. It's a great way to get to know people more deeply. And this week we're continuing this morning's theme. It's all about love. On Wednesday night, community singing is back after a winter break. This is such a fun thing to do. 2 hours of singing classic pop and folk songs, spirituals, a bit of all sorts. Do let me know if you're planning to come. Sometimes there are last minute changes, but I feel fairly confident we're going ahead this week. Next week, Margaret will be back for her regular Find Your Voice singing class, and after that we'll have our next art play crafternoon. That's just a relaxed space from 1 till 3 where we'll get all the art materials out of the cupboard and sit around and play about and have a nice chat. That's a once a month thing. This month's title for the Better World Book Club is Monsters, What Do We Do With Great Art by Bad People by Claire Dederer. Our loan copies have all gone, but if you really, really want to come and you can't get hold of a copy, let me know and I'll try and sort you out with one. Next Sunday we'll be back here at 11 when my good chum Lizzie Kingston Harrison, who is she works at Essex Hall on kind of congregational community connections, and she's also training to be a minister. So she'll be co-leading the service with me next week on the theme, We Contain Multitudes. All this is on the back of your order of service. It's also on the Friday email. If you want to find out what we're doing in weeks to come, just sign up for the mailing list on our website. This congregation very much has a life beyond Sunday mornings. We do our best to look out for each other and build these supportive connections. So just time for our closing words and closing music. Our time together ends. But in the days ahead, may the love that gives to life its beauty, the reverence that gives to life its sacredness, and the purposes that give to life its deep significance be strong within each of us and lead us into ever deepening relationships with all of life. Amen.